is the pardon from Joe Biden. We've been waiting for it. He said that he was not going to pardon Hunter, but now he has. And this is a big one, okay? Tons of reaction on this. Even Politico and others are saying we haven't seen a pardon as sweeping as this in generations. And there's a lot on this because the pardon didn't just go and pardon the specific crimes for which Hunter was convicted. It was also so broad that it pardoned basically everything he's ever done all the way back to 2014. And the dirty little secret here was that in 2014, that's when he joined the board of Burisma. And so we got reaction on that because there's more to this story. It's not like they just pardoned him for his tax crimes, which we talked about, or his gun charges, which we talked about, or for a bunch of other unindicted stuff that they protected him from getting consequences for. It's everything. And really, this also goes back to Joe. If they're protecting Hunter, Hunter was the bag man for Joe. So it's also protecting Joe. Now, there's a lot of reaction to this that especially from the left, they're furious about it. Many people, even Biden supporters, are slamming this as utter BS. And I think for them, yeah, it's utter BS. And they are, I think, duped again, gaslit again. They got lied to again. And we didn't. We always knew that Joe Biden was going to pardon him. It's obvious. It's his father and son. And you have to put yourself in that position. If you're a father and your son is now about to do whatever, you kind of default to the love of a father pardons the son and so on. Now, I understand that as somebody who is not a father yet, that maybe there's more to that story and that maybe a good father would have not put Hunter into these positions and would have not enabled this for decades and decades. And so there's a lot, I think, that you can unpack there. But Democrats are even unhappy about it. Now, a little bit of me is very happy about this because all this means is that Joe Biden has proven to us that the Justice Department is a problem. Okay, he's confirming everything that we've been saying here for the last several years. He's saying, oh yeah, I guess they are biased and partisan and so on. And so they're upset about it. I think this gives the Republicans and President Trump a huge opening. I'm almost giddy about it because if Joe Biden's going to pardon his son, that means that Trump can pardon the J6ers who are not his sons, okay, who are people who were victims of the DOJ. And as Joe Biden and the Democrats just came out and showed us, someone is above the law, and his name is Hunter Biden. Wasn't even the president. So he is above the law. And the Democrats and their leader, who they just stood behind for 4 years, made that happen. So it's shocking how filled with lies and what a corrupt person Joe Biden is. But I think this is largely a gift to the right and to the Republicans and to President Trump, because now Trump can pardon whomever, anywhere, anytime he wants, no matter what. And as long as it's not his son, it's fine. It's fine. It's not even a conflict of interest because Joe Biden just pardoned his own son. It's pathetic. Anyways, here is what the official statement says from the White House. Joe Biden pardons Hunter. December 1st, statement from the president says, "Today, I signed a pardon for my son, Hunter." Smartest man I know. "From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively unfairly prosecuted." What? "Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form." Yeah, because normally they take a plea deal, and this uncovers so much for us. Now we know why Hunter didn't take that plea deal that would have made his whole case go away, because Daddy was going to make it go away the whole time. We were sitting here scratching our heads, wondering, why is Hunter so dumb? Why is he playing around with these prosecutions like they don't matter? Because guess what? They don't matter, because he knew the entire time that his daddy was going to pardon him. And so he could have rejected that plea offer that we were sitting here screaming from the rooftops. What an idiot. Rejecting that deal resulted in his convictions, but it would have been some admission of responsibility. And he didn't want that because he was always going to get this. And they lied through their teeth throughout that entire sequence in order to do that. So this is not, by the way, what I'm even concerned about. I think a lot of our gun laws are bad and unconstitutional, in fact. And I'm not actually worried about Hunter Biden being a crackhead committing gun crimes. Like okay, it's a problem, it's a crime, yeah, but a crackhead with gun crimes, like it's not like the end of America happens every day. What I'm more concerned about is the corruption that was enabled and exacerbated and allowed to happen through Hunter that enabled the Democratic Party and Joe Biden to engage in this corruption. Burisma and Ukraine and fired prosecutors and all that crap. So they're going to try to minimize this and say, it's just about a gun charge, a felony gun charge. Ridiculous. We never do that. That's okay. That's fine. You might be right. We actually don't, because most people will take diversion deals and plea deals unless they're convicted felons and they're prohibited possessors and those things. That wasn't Hunter's case. But this was just a little bit of a slap on the wrist because, well, guys at Empower Oversight and Joseph Ziegler and Gary, the IRS whistleblower, Shapley, and others, okay, they were showing us that the DOJ was phoning Hunter's lawyers and saying, can you please clear out that storage facility because we're going to be investigating it. We got a warrant. We're going to go search for it. They called him and they moved it out. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions, it's not what this was, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions, which Hunter had the ability to pursue. It's clear that Hunter was treated differently, says Joe. So now we have two standards of justice. Wow. The charges in his case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and to oppose my election. Looking at you, James Comer. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal, which Hunter rejected, agreed to by the Department of Justice, unraveled in the courtroom because of Hunter, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for the bringing of political pressure during the process. The whistleblowers blew the whistle on the plea deal, which was a non-prosecution agreement brought by special counsel David Weiss, who's BFFs with Joe because he's from Delaware. Had the plea deal held, Hunter rejected it. It would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. He rejected it. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion that Hunter was singled out only because he's my son. Yeah, the guy escaped multiple crimes because he was your son. He didn't get charged with a whole slew of crimes that are detailed in this book here called The Report on the Biden Laptop by Marco Polo, USA.org. All of that was ignored. It's a huge book. Get a copy. You can look through it and you can see what's inside. He was protected because Joe was selected. He's been 5.5 years sober, which is debatable because there's cocaine at the White House, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecutions. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. Yeah, so poor Joe has been the victim of political prosecutions. And this is right. This is them actually admitting here. This is about Joe. Again, Hunter, whatever, crackhead, sex addict, problematic, troubled dude, no doubt about that. Not excusing anything that he's done here, but he's just a crackhead, okay? He's not the smartest man Joe Biden knows. He is a pawn in a much bigger process, and Joe Biden was at the top, at the vice president level, firing prosecutors in Ukraine. We're now supporting Ukraine in a prospective World War III because of this crap. That's what we're concerned about. Okay, for my entire career, I followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth. Wrong, you lied. We're going to come back on that multiple times. They'll be fair-minded. Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I've wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. And I do, actually, I do. If I was a father and my son was in that position and I thought, this is it, this is the last situation, he might have 40 years, he might sit in federal prison for something, I think I'd pardon my son too. Don't know that I'd lie about it though, and tell everybody for months that I wouldn't do it no matter what, and then come out and do it. Don't think I'd do that. Think I'd say something like, we'll see how the process plays out, which is what Trump always does, right? Trump says, we'll see what happens. Are you going to confirm the election is free and fair? No, we'll see what happens after the fact. But Joe Biden said he was not going to pardon his son, and now he has. Here's the official pardon. Executive grant of clemency from the demented president, Joe Biden, says, "To all whom these presents shall come, greeting. Be it known that this day I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, not for long, pursuant to my powers under the Constitution, have granted unto Robert Hunter Biden a full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States." Right? He's got 2 criminal cases, one in Delaware, one in California. That's it, right? We're just going to pardon those 2 because those 2 were exploited? Wrong. For those offenses against the United States, which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in all the way back to January 1st, 2014, all the way through December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all the offenses or charged prosecutions brought by David Weiss in Delaware and California, but everything else, including but not limited to all of it. Okay, it's everything, going all the way back to 2000. And I've signed my name and caused the pardon to be recorded with the DOJ, done at the city of Washington this first day of December in 2024, signed by Joe Biden. It is what we were expecting. We knew this was going to come. Now, for some reason, the left did not know this was going to come, and many of them are very unhappy about it. We know that he made previous pledges not to do this. This is why people are upset about it. Joe Biden pardoned his son, but he has said that he was not going to do it. He has previously said he would not pardon his son or commute his sentences multiple times. The move on Sunday night came right as Hunter was set to receive punishment less than 2 months before Trump is set to return. It caps a long-running legal saga, and Biden has said multiple times, "I will not pardon my son." In fact, we've got some clips on this from Karine even, and Joe and others said this many times. Here's what Libs of TikTok clip for us.
As we sit here in Normandy, your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Wrong. Liar. And he lied then, and Karine lied for him multiple times.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
You've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Wow. I'm confused. Is it a yes or a no? Is it a yes or a no?
And I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Okay, so pretty unequivocal on that one. Pretty unequivocal. Now, we knew, okay, we always thought, yeah, these people are liars. Okay, they're lying about everything. They've lied about the border. They've lied about all the policy issues. But in addition to that, we can go through the list. We're not going to. But they have lied about Joe's competency. They said he was capable and competent for years. Clearly, he was not. And they covered that up. Then they told us Kamala was competent and going to win. They covered that up. And people are unhappy about it. Even at Mediaite, the left has gotten obliterated time and time again. Could you imagine if you just got lied to every day? Your party just woke up, told you something. Joe Biden's amazing. He's competent. Turns out he can't talk or think or speak or walk. You go, whoa. Then you have to swap your candidate in. Then you get Kamala. And suddenly it's joy. And you say to yourself, wow, we're going to win this thing. I was up by 15 points. Incredible. And then you turn around, you get obliterated. You lose every single swing state. Oops. Wow, that's like strike 2. Then you're like, at least Joe's going to wrap up his administration with honor and integrity. And he's going to keep his word because that's the kind of guy he is. Wrong. Pardons his son. You're like, oh, he told us he wasn't going to do that. So now they're calling it utter BS. Hilarious. And here's what they said. On Sunday evening, Biden issued a pardon for Hunter and calling it weaponized selective prosecution. Great. That's exactly what we've been saying for years. So here's what Charlie Sykes said, a smart person texted me, says, Joe Biden has just removed the issue of pardons from the political arena for the next 4 years. And Trump, once again, can't believe his own dumb F-word luck at this point. Sadly, I think he's right. He's right. Trump can come in and pardon anybody. Pardon Don Jr., everybody, not even doing anything wrong. Pardons. Joe didn't. Joe did it. He started it. And now the J6 pardons feel like a gimme. Joe Walsh was also out, mega anti-Trumper. He says, this is utter BS, just plain wrong and stupidly selfish. Shame on you, POTUS. You've given Trump license now to dole out favors to his family and wealthy friends. This is what it's about. They don't care about Hunter and his pardon. In fact, as we'll see here, many of them think this was the right call. Even Eric Holder thinks it's the right call. It's now they're mad that Trump has political cover. That's what it's all there. That's why they're really upset. They don't care about Hunter. They just don't want Trump. If Joe Biden won again or Kamala won again and Joe did this, they'd say fine. They don't want Trump to have another tool in his toolbox to use when he comes in. And now he does. And when he does, you've given his supporters the opportunity to say everyone does it. And by the way, Biden, you lied, like you just lied to us too. Here's what Tom Nichols says, responding to David Litt. These are lefties, apparently. David Litt says, I think Joe Biden did a ton of good things as president. Hunter Biden's prosecution was obviously driven by politics, as was his non-prosecution. Okay, he was committing crimes hand over fist and was allowed to get away with it because he was enabled by the FBI and the DOJ. So the ending of the grift and the reinstitution of law and order is not politics. That's a return to the norm. But I can't see how pardoning him now in this way is good for the country, the American people. And our leaders should do what is best for the people. That's right. The leaders should do that. And Joe Biden just pardoned his son, who was never working for the government, who committed a bunch of crimes as a private citizen, who escaped a bunch of criminal prosecutions because of his status as a Biden. Now there are consequences coming. Now, the Atlantic deputy director said on the pardon decision, like his stubborn insistence on running for a second term, Biden chose to prioritize his own feelings over the defense of his country. Womp womp. Journalist Nate Silver's upset, says pollster, I discussed here how I voted for Harris despite feeling like Democrats indulged in a lot of bad behavior that voters were rational to publish. Silver voted for Harris? He admitted it too. After the White House lying about the Hunter pardon, I'm not sure how much more I can tolerate. Okay, Nate. You've now had it. You've now had it with the Democrats. You voted for Harris. It's insane. And it's hilarious because he now admits that he voted for Harris and he had some of the worst polling in this last election, saying that it was like 50%. Harris was going to win a bunch of stuff. What a joke. Chris Saliza says, a colossally selfish decision that will allow every Trump supporter to note that Democrats say one thing and do another. They're liars, and the Democrats like it. Nate Silver, very angry. A selfish and senile old man. And they got duped, okay, because they got duped. Because, again, they believed them for some reason. It's like, how many times do you have to people be lied to? For 4 years. This is it? This is going to cause you to finally have enough? Noting that Biden here writes of telling the truth to the American people while not explaining how he lied to them before he said he would not pardon his son. Susan Glasser's furious. Here's Bakari. Thank God, pardon Hunter. Trump plays by no rules, abuses the law. He could have pardoned Hunter and called you a coward for not doing it. He would have pardoned Hunter and called you a coward for not doing it. That's probably right. It would have been a hilarious move by Trump. But to be fair, this does take this issue off of the Republican Party for a while. Right? The Republicans won't focus on Hunter anymore. But they won't need to focus on Hunter anymore. The reason the Republicans were so focused on Hunter is because Joe was in charge of everything. They had the DOJ, they had the FBI, they had the White House, they had the Senate. So now they're not going to have any of those things anymore. Now the Republicans can come in with Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and John Ratcliffe and Pete Hegseth, and we can see what was actually happening behind the scenes here on all of their corruption. And so Hunter is now going to be, I think, largely irrelevant. I'm not happy that he's escaping justice because other people have been punished here in this country in insane fashions for much, much less than Hunter did. 5 minutes in the Capitol, you're in prison. Hunter did monstrous things and engaged in it for years. And in fact, there's a ton on this. We had some more reaction. Here was one from a while ago. Remember, this is what it was all about. It traced back to 2014, and Joe Biden was talking about firing the prosecutor in Burisma in Ukraine.
I would not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. And so I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch, got fired.
Yeah, and that was a prosecutor who arguably was looking into some bad things that the Bidens were involved in. Here's War Clandestine says, Hunter's pardon is about covering up their criminality. It's not about Hunter's tax and gun charges. They rewound this all the way back to 2014. And we see there was a lot of stuff happening in Ukraine at the time. We saw that Victoria Nuland was asked by Marco Rubio about biolabs. We know that Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell have been over there for years talking about supporting Ukraine, funding them, sending them a ton of money. And we know that Joe put his son on the board of Burisma, where he was getting paid $1 million a year for not knowing anything about oil and gas because daddy was the vice president. As we see, lots of connections here, and the story is much deeper than Hunter's crack addiction. And this is why they're moving so quickly on this. Now, here was one of the lefties, Joe Walsh, who was very upset about this, saying this is bad for the Democrats. They are wrecking their credibility, and they have given Trump vindication on all of his chief complaints that the DOJ and our justice system are weaponized.
What do you make of all of this? What is likely to be the response on Capitol Hill to this breaking news?
Good to be with you. See, I told you, they're all like that. So the next time any of us complain about anything Trump does, this pardon is just deflating. For those of us who have been out there for a few years now yelling about what a unique threat Donald Trump is, for Joe Biden to do something like this, Trump, nobody's above the law, we've been screaming. Joe Biden just made clear his son Hunter is above the law.
Yep.
Donald Trump lies every time he opens his mouth, we've been screaming. Joe Biden repeatedly lied about the politicization of the justice system. Donald Trump and his people have been screaming.
Yeah.
Well,
That's exactly what Biden said here.
Yes!
Joe, is this a politics of purity? We had Donald Trump pardon Sheriff Joe Arpaio during his term.
It wasn't his son, so what?
And there wasn't a lot of...
And he was a public figure who was being attacked by the oppositional party. That's what a pardon is for, by the way. And I'm in favor of the pardon power. There's a lot of people out there, especially people on the left. I saw Stephen Richer, that moron from Arizona, who said that the pardon power should be amended away. Why? Because Trump is now going to use it. They don't want Trump to use it. And he's also critical of Joe Biden using the pardon power. But again, they're not critical about Joe Biden using the pardon power because of Hunter. They're not outraged about Hunter. Most of these people had their mouths zipped shut when there was any conversation about Hunter. He's not a public figure. He has no role in this. He's a private citizen. Nothing to do with anything. Okay, the pardon power, in many ways, is going, hopefully, to be used in its intended form, okay? The deep state, the corrupt bureaucracy, targeted a political person in America, President Trump, and all of his supporters, Team MAGA, and they prosecuted him. And 1,500 plus other J6ers, and many more people, Catholic charities and others. people got targeted by politicians, by the Biden administration, and by Democrats like Joe Walsh, who have been, for the last 4 years, showing up on these shows and ranting against the right. Now, Trump won. The people have vetoed all of that corruption, and Trump comes in with the pardon power, and he gets to reset the game board. It's raw power now. He just says, no, okay, pardon, 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 and we're wiping the slate clean. That's what the pardon power is for when used appropriately, so that people who are politically targeted have recourse when the American people elect them, so that they're not bound by the prior administration's justice system. They can come in and override that. And if the people want to put that person in charge to do that, they can. And guess what? They just did, which is why they're so upset about this. They want to take away the pardon power. I saw Stephen Richards. We need to amend the Constitution to stop this. Why? Because Trump is going to come in and use the pardon power correctly? Just because Joe Biden is an unethical piece of garbage who pardoned his son, who clearly is not in the realm of that category, right, of a political actor who's being targeted. He committed crimes. Multiple crimes, and he escaped any responsibility for the vast majority of the most serious crimes. And so now they're feeling the truth about who their leaders are. Welcome aboard. Thanks for finally waking up.
Of hue and cry about that. And this is a father who saw his first wife killed, his daughter killed in a car crash, his two young sons survived. One goes on to have real difficulties with addiction. Another dies because of cancer. This is a family that's really troubled. I mean, yes, he said he wasn't going to do this, but did anyone ever believe that was the case?
Yeah, Joe Walsh did. You're just talking to the dude. Hello. We didn't, but Joe Walsh did. Evidently, he's upset.
I would have put good money on this happening. Are many people going to be surprised that a father who is also the president would do this for his son?
I don't know that people will be surprised, because you're right. Joe Biden repeatedly said he wouldn't do this. So he repeatedly lied.
Yeah.
But this just furthers the cynicism that people have about politics. And that cynicism strengthens Trump, because Trump can just say, I'm not a unique threat. Everybody does this. If I do something for my kid, my son-in-law, whatever, look, Joe Biden does the same thing.
Yeah, they're saying it's Jared Kushner's father, okay? Son-in-law is pardoned under Trump. And that was because many people say that he was politically prosecuted by Chris Christie, who's a political person being prosecuted for political reasons. Trump pardoned Kushner's father, so it would be his father-in-law, kid's father-in-law, something like that. I don't know what it is. But then they're saying that Hunter is a closer connection because it's Joe Biden's son directly.
I get it, but this was a selfish move by Biden, which politically only strengthens Trump. It's just deflating.
It is deflating, and Trump never promised not to pardon Kushner's father-in-law, right? Didn't say multiple times from the White House that he was never going to do this. So absolutely hysterical. And the pardon is broad, right? Politico commented on this saying, is as sweeping as it has ever been. Says it looks a lot like Richard Nixon's, except broader. Joe Biden's grant of clemency was an extraordinary political act, insulates his son from ever facing federal charges for anything. Experts on pardons said that they could think of only one other person who received a pardon so sweeping. That was Nixon, a president who was given a blanket pardon by Ford in 1974, which again, this is part of the justification of the pardon power. You just come in, you just clean it out. Okay, we're done with these political prosecutions. They're done. Someone says, Margaret Love says about Hunter's, I have never seen language like this in a pardon document that purports to pardon offenses that have apparently not even been charged yet, with the exception of Nixon. And Nixon was a president. Okay, that's a president and another president, not some private citizen crackhead. Even the broadest Trump pardons were specific as to what was being pardoned. Did Kushner get a pardon for everything and everyone? Did his father-in-law? Joe Biden's full and unconditional pardon of his son is deliberately vague. Trump and his allies have long fixated on his son, and Trump has repeatedly pledged to use the second term to investigate them, right? Biden, not the son. Conservative commentators have engaged in parlor games, but so rather than merely pardoning his son for everything, he gave him, or for the specific crimes, he gave him wide range. And we know that all the way back in 2014 is when he joined the board. It's broader than they're even admitting, okay? It's for crimes not even yet charged that they know are there. The pardon came after Trump announced Kash Patel was going to be coming in, and maybe that's why they're freaking out so much. Trump will not be able to undo the pardon, and its sweeping nature means that Hunter is clear, man. Not be able to reopen the long-running probe into Hunter. It's an extraordinarily broad grant. While the sweeping nature of the pardon is almost without a peer in modern history, in another respect, it is Trump's. See what they're trying to do? In Trump's first term, sometimes he pardoned people, and obviously it's not quite the same, all right? And I think Trump's pardon of Kushner was specific for a specific conviction. That was an erroneous conviction, not for a lifetime of criminality. Now, Trump responded to this, and here is what Trump said. In response to the Hunter pardon, President Trump and the campaign came out and said, does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the J6 hostages who have now been in prison for years? Such an abuse and miscarriage of justice. Obviously, that is an interesting post from the president, because does that mean that he is there dictating the pardons for the J6ers who are now still being prosecuted and still being arrested, as we've seen? The FBI is still posting tweets saying that they rounded up even more people. And people are pointing to this interesting post from Joe Biden. Biden posted this May 31st, 2024. He said, no one is above the law. But now Community Notes has responded and said, not quite there, Joe. On December 1st, 2024, President Biden, Joe, pardoned his son, Hunty, for crimes covering nearly 11 years of offenses against the United States. Womp. So somebody is above the law. His name is Hunter Biden. People are noticing. Now, Trump's campaign also responded in the transition, saying that Trump slammed the Democrat-controlled Justice Department, and Stephen Chung came out. He made the shock announcement on Sunday. In a statement, a spokesperson for Trump slammed what they called the Democratic-controlled justice system, but didn't appear to disagree with the decision. Said the failed witch hunts against President Trump have proven that the Democrat-controlled DOJ and other radical prosecutors are guilty of weaponizing the DOJ. That system of justice must be fixed, and due process must be restored for all Americans, which is exactly why Trump will do as he returns to the White House. On Truth Social, Trump was a little bit angrier. Does this apply to the J6ers? No, it doesn't. In October, Trump, who issued a slew of pardons during his 4 years, asked by radio host Hugh Hewitt if he would pardon Hunter. He said, I wouldn't take it off the books. And it would have been amazing. It would be hilarious if Trump did that. I pardon Joe because Biden's too weak to do it. Biden raged against several people in Congress. And of course, we know that's Comer and others. Here's what Comer said in response to this. He says, and James Comer, as we know, has been at the forefront of the Biden crime family investigation. He says, here's my statement on Joe Biden issuing a pardon to Hunty. Says Joe has lied from start to finish about his family's corrupt influence peddling activities. Not only has he falsely claimed that he never met with his son's foreign business associates and that his son did nothing wrong, but he also lied when he said he would not pardon Hunter. The charges Hunter faced were just the tip of the iceberg in the blatant corruption that Biden and the crime family have lied to the American people about. It's unfortunate that rather than come clean about their decades of wrongdoing, President Biden and his family can do everything they can to avoid accountability. And so that's from Comer. And obviously, he's unhappy about it. In the Senate, Tom Cotton responded, had a couple of thoughts, said, all right, most Americans can sympathize with the father's decision to pardon his son, even if they disagree. And yeah, I can understand that completely. What they can't forgive is Biden lying about it repeatedly before the election. Exactly right. Just say, I don't know, maybe. We'll have to see what happens at the outcome of the case. If there's justice and if it's not a political prosecution, then I'll consider letting it stand. But maybe if not, then I can't. I will pardon him. Remember, the Biden DOJ tried to give Hunter a corrupt sweetheart deal. We read through the whole thing here. It was one of the most wild scenes in court that was only stopped when the judge asked questions. The entire ordeal has been an affront to the rule of law. And 3, Democrats can spare us the lectures about the rule of law when, say, Trump nominates Bondi and Kash Patel to clean up this corruption. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And I think that the pardon is going to give Cash and Pam Bondi cover as well to say there needs to be dramatic changes, really serious changes, because the current system is not working. Now, there was a briefing that took place today, and we saw that Karine and John Kirby were both out answering questions on Air Force One, doing a gaggle. Here's what that sounded like.
A quick thing at the top, and then watch out. Multiple seconds.
All right, Karine, come on.
It's been cold on the whole entire plane. Usually it's hot. It's really cold, especially back here.
Put a sweater on.
Yeah, get some sunlight. It's hopefully some warmth.
Open the windows, let the sunlight in, warm up the airplane.
You good? Yep. All right, cool. So just one note at the top before I hand it over. I know you've all seen the president's statement on the pardon he signed for his son, Hunter. The president's statement was quite comprehensive, but I'll take your questions on this after my NSC colleague, Admiral John Kirby, reviews the president's trip to Angola and takes your question on foreign policy news of the day. And after that, we'll continue. Go ahead,
Thanks, Admiral. Just the two things. One, I think they've seen the statement issued by the First Lady and the President following reports of the death of Homer Nutra
on Sunday, that this
history, and obviously the last of the administration to do that, to implement that. And again, so far, it largely is doing that.
Stopped any Israeli strikes.
There have been sporadic strikes, no question
over this debate over tariffs. And do you feel that's appropriate?
I'm not aware of any follow-on conversations that President Biden had with Prime Minister Trudeau since his meeting with President-elect Trump on this. And is it appropriate for foreign leaders to speak to a incoming? Yeah, of course it is. Okay. All right. Over to you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Good. Well, I know you had two.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Two questions. Fair enough. Fair enough. Topic of the day. You have said repeatedly yourself since the election, the president has said for months, no pardon was coming. I wanted to ask you, could those statements now be seen as lies from the American people? Is there really a credibility issue now, this announcement?
Well, first of all, one of the things that the president always believes is to be truthful to the American people. That is something that he always truly believes.
Why do you lie to us?
And if you see the end of his, I assume that you've read his statement and you look at the end of that statement.
He said, I made this.
And he actually says that in the first line in the last paragraph, and respects the thinking and how the American people will actually see this in his decision making. And I would encourage everyone to read in full the president's statement. I think he lays out his thought process. He lays out how he came to this decision. He came to this decision this weekend. So let's be very clear about that. He says it himself. It's in his voice. He said he came to this decision this weekend. And he said he wrestled with this. And because he believes in the justice system, but he also believes that the war politics infected the process and led to a miscarriage of justice. This is his words. I'm just
why it is interesting timing. Why did he change his mind? Is it because he sees Kash Patel's coming in? He's oh crap.
Repeating what the president said. He also said that no reasonable person, if you are looking at this in a good faith way, if you are looking at the facts of Hunter's cases and you can't reach any other conclusion.
Just pure spin.
And what we have seen, and not just us, there's other people who have commented on the president's actions in the last 24 hours. I've lost track of time, and could see that Hunter was singled out. And because his last name was Biden, because he was the president
and enabled.
That's what we saw.
The only reason he got $83,000 a month, which is $1 million a year, is because he was a Biden. That's it. He's escaped centuries in prison because he's a Biden and was allowed to abuse and traffic people and women and trade on the good name of the American government, or the American people rather, for his own money.
And so the president believed enough is enough, and the president took action.
Wild.
And he also believes that they tried to break his son in order to break him. That's
what he's worried about.
And this, again, I am just seeing what the president said. I think the statement in full really lays out his thought process. He said that he came to this decision this weekend, and he wrestled with it. It wasn't an easy decision to make.
Wait, one other. So just real quick on that. The two of them were together this weekend. Did the president and Hunter discuss this possibility? Did they talk about this happening?
Come on, Dad. He made this decision this weekend. He made it himself. I don't have anything else to discuss beyond that.
He's talking about Hunter.
Have anything to discuss. I've been pretty consistent in not talking about private conversations that he's had with his family. I just don't have anything to say. Besides, the president made this decision this weekend, as he said in his statement, and he made this decision himself. Once he made this decision, he shared it with his senior staff.
The reasons he laid out in his statement, if we assume those to be correct, that's been correct.
Nothing's changed.
Are not changes that occurred this weekend. So what changed his mind this weekend?
Again, it's in his statement. He wrestled with it. He thought about it. And he believed, and what he saw was that his son was singled out. And so he made this decision.
Great.
And
So
once
Trump,
he made the decision, which was this weekend.
So as long as Trump says people were singled out and he grappled with it, then he can do whatever he wants. Is that the standard? And by the way, Trump has never said that he's not going to do certain things. So Trump, this is so bad for them. It's honestly shocking that they allowed it to happen, but they can't really stop it. It's devastating because every lecture that we've gotten over the last 4 years is now lacking in teeth, and she's having a very difficult time even explaining this. Like, her justification was that he just changed his mind. That's it. Nothing happened other than they lost the election, and it makes them feel, it really does make you that much more cynical. It means they lied before the election in order to try to win the election. If they would have won the election, then they wouldn't have needed to pardon Hunter because they would have been in control of the DOJ. The thing that changed is they lost the election. That's what changed.
And he decided to move forward with it and not to wait. And I think he truly believed enough is enough. This is
so Trump has to believe that too, and he can pardon
5 years
whoever
or
he wants.
so. The president's political opponents say this. This is not the president saying it. They said it themselves. They were going after Hunter Biden. And so he made this decision.
Karine, when the president says that the justice system is infected with politics, how deep is the rot? And how much of the blame does the president take on himself for the fact that his own Justice Department, exactly right, his appointees have allowed it to get this bad?
And I'm going to get to your answers, but I do want to just share a couple of things from, for example, former Attorney General Eric Holder said, no U.S. attorney would have charged this case given the underlying facts. After a 5-year investigation, the facts as discovered only made that clear.
And I had that pulled up. Holder did come out and say something like that. Is this him? Yes. Says, Hunter, here's the reality. This is Eric Holder, Obama's former attorney general. Says no U.S. attorney would have charged this case given the underlying facts. Well, after a 5-year investigation, the facts as discovered only made that clear. Had his name been Joe Smith, the resolution would have been fundamentally more fairly a declination. Pardon warranted. Ask yourself a vastly more important question. Do you really think Kash Patel, there it is, okay, Kash Patel is qualified to lead the world's preeminent law enforcement investigative organization? Obvious answer, hell no. This is a tweet about Hunter. Why are you now switching to Kash Patel, Eric? Are you nervous? Are you sad? Are you scared? Seems like maybe you are.
Had his name been Joe Smith, the resolution would have been fundamentally and more fairly a declination. Pardon warranted. Former U.S. Attorney to the Eastern District of Michigan, Barbara McQuaid, said, pardon of Hunter Biden is the best interest
Democrat
of justice.
hacks.
Based on the facts, most federal prosecutors would have declined to charge him. The botched misdemeanor guilty plea and sentence of the diversion were a tell that the special counsel had the same assessment. One more. Former Deputy Chief of the Criminal Division, Southern District of New York said, as SDNY Criminal Division Deputy Chief, I was responsible for approving charges and non-prosecution requests. I wouldn't have approved Hunter Biden's tax or gun cases if Hunter's last name wasn't Biden. I don't believe he would have been charged. His pardon is justified. And the president says it. I'm going to pull out his statement to your question. And this plays into what I just read with the SDNY Deputy Chief, which is, look, there was a deal on the table. a carefully negotiated plea deal
He should have
agreed
taken
to
it.
by the Department of Justice unraveled in the courtroom with a
Hunter's
number,
fault.
this is the president's voice, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. This is the president
Hunter
saying
rejected
He's saying his own Justice Department is broken, Karine.
He believes in the Justice Department. He believes that
doesn't.
there was
Saying all that? He believes in the Justice Department?
This is his words. He said this. This is the president saying this.
He just said it's infected with politics.
I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making. I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfair prosecuted.
So how deep is the rot? How many selective prosecutions are there at the DOJ?
What I can speak to is this particular case.
Good for this
which
guy.
is Hunter Biden, who has the last name of the president, who I just said there were political opponents who were very clear and very vocal about going after his son.
So were you guys. Biden came out and gave his MAGA Gates of Hell speech.
Who are part of that system, who have either worked in the justice system.
It was David Weiss.
And they have been very clear on how they feel about this particular case, the cases against Hunter Biden.
So
The judge was also clear in this case. The judge said it wasn't political pressure when it came to the plea deal. It said this was a process issue, that you basically had two agreements in one, and that you can't have side deal. There were basic questioning in this case that both lawyers could not really answer the questions of.
It was a rigged plea deal.
The president, his statement, is he not undermining the judge and a judicial system that he promised would be independent? The judge in this case did not say it was political pressure.
And I just talked about a SDNI criminal division deputy chief who said
cares?
he was responsible for charges and not prosecuting requests. I just also quoted him and what he said.
Retired, right?
And there are others who have said, former White House counsel said, if I were his White House counsel, I would encourage him to pardon his son. The clemency power has few limitations and certainly would extend to a Hunter Biden pardon. Former Watergate Assistant Special Prosecutor Jill Weinberg, this was one of those cases that called out for clemency. Hunter Biden, first of all, would not ever be prosecuted for the gun crime, but for his Hunter has now been sober for many years.
Keep reading statements, Karine.
And this is a time when it is really appropriate to grant a clemency. Look, the president, two things could be true. The president does believe in the justice system and in the Department of Justice.
But
and he also believes that his son was singled out politically. And this is what we saw over and over again over
by
the last
his own
couple
DOJ?
of years. And when his deal that fell apart, which the president said in his statement, he thought would have been fair. The president said this, that
Hunter should have
Department of
taken
Justice
it.
agreed with. He said if that had gone through, he believed it would have been fair. When that fell apart, his own political opponents just continued to revel in it. And
Hunter
one of the
rejected
reasons the president did the pardon is because they didn't seem like his political opponents would let go of it. It didn't seem like they would move on. And so this is why this president took this action.
Is the president seeking the resignation of the Attorney General?
Wow.
Harris hasn't lost the election.
No,
I'm not gonna get
of course not.
into the election. It is a no. I can answer that is a no. And what I can say,
This would not have happened if Harris hadn't been. The pardon would not have happened.
to
Karine is so dumb.
where we are today. And so I can't speak to hypothetical.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So she just admitted it, and then the reporters. Wait a minute. Wait. What? Wait. What? It would not have happened if Harris won. So the only reason this is happening is because Trump won. What I meant to say, she's backtracking hard.
Where we are today, the president made this decision over the weekend.
Now it's no hypothetical.
He thought about it. He wrestled with it. And for him, he made this decision because he believed his son was being politically
We're wondering what changed his mind, and obviously the election. In the statement, he refers to enough is enough. He thinks that there could be further. It sounds like he thinks there could be further prosecution of Hunter under a Trump administration.
He didn't believe that they would let up, right? He didn't think that they would continue to go after his son. That's
and
what
Joe.
he believed.
Yeah, and Joe.
And look,
Hunter
I'm not going to
leads
get into
to Joe.
hypotheticals.
Follow
The
the
original
bouncing ball.
part of your question. The president wrestled with this decision. He made this decision this weekend, and he decided to move forward with pardoning his son.
So does the president believe now? Does the president believe now and agree with President-elect Trump that the justice system has been weaponized for political purposes and that it needs root and branch reform?
Great question.
No, read the president's statement. Seriously, read the president's statement.
We did.
He said he believes in the Department of Justice.
Just one case is
He
bad.
says it in his statement.
Two.
He believes
With his son.
He also believes that royal politics infected the process and it led to a miscarriage of justice. He believes his son was unfairly targeted. He said that what his political opponents have done to my son, that's his words, is cruel and enough is enough. He says he believes in the justice system. And I said both things. No, but things I can only speak for this president. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. Both things could be true. Right. And that's what he says. He says that the Department of Justice, he believes in the Department of Justice. He also believes that politics infected the process here. It infected the process. And you saw that when the deal fell apart. And let's not forget, the Department of Justice agreed on that deal. The president said if that deal had moved forward, he thought it would be a fair process. And when that deal fell apart, his political opponents took credit for it. They took credit for it and didn't seem like they were willing to stop.
Hunter made that deal fall
Trump
apart.
has likened this to the case of the so-called January 6thers, the people who are in prison because of their role in January 6th. Yeah. What do you think of that argument? And do you think that's fair parallel that he believes he should?
Of course it is.
Today, I'm going to talk about the pardon. We've been very clear about January 6th.
I don't want to talk about it.
Clear about that. He's spoken to that many times before. What we believe in this particular case is what is unprecedented is the way that his son was singled out.
So were the J6ers.
And this is not the first time a president has granted a pardon.
Hunter was protected. J6ers
It's not the first time a president has pardoned a family member. And it's not the first time a president has pardoned conduct that occurred during a certain time period. We've been very clear where we stand on January 6th. I don't have anything else to add.
What kind of precedent is this setting going forward for American families who don't have
My son was a crackhead.
Their dad?
My son,
is the president taking advantage of his position by doing this? Because not everyone, like I just said, has President Biden as their dad,
as their daddy.
Do this.
Let me go back to the last thing that the president said.
What?
He said, for my entire career, I followed a simple principle.
Lying
just to
to
tell
people?
The American
Plagiarizing?
people the truth. They'll be fair-minded. Here's the truth. I believe the justice system. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe royal politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice.
Great.
And
Just
once
like
I
the
made
J6
this decision
cases.
this weekend, there
Just
was
like the Trump prosecutions.
there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president will come to this decision. And as I've stated, and I read a couple of quotes from folks who said, including Eric Holder, who said if his last name was Joe Smith,
Who's a corrupt partisan hack. Yeah.
This will not have happened. They targeted
If his last
him.
name was
Hold on,
Trump
I'm
or
answering this question.
Bannon
They targeted
or
him
Navarro,
because his
he
last
would have
name
been
was Biden.
incarcerated.
And again, I think the way the president ended his statement, I think clearly states where he was at, how he feels about this process, how he feels about being truthful to the American people. And so that's why he put out the statement. And we encourage everybody to really take a look about this. And the last line is, I think the American people will understand a father and a president, why a father and a president would come to this decision.
The United States has more people in prison than any country on earth. Some are facing a death penalty that the president himself said he would get rid of, has not gotten rid of. Can we expect that other people who are in prison, whose clemency petitions are sitting at the White House, are going to have their cases see the same care and attention that the president gave his own son?
As when it comes to the criminal justice system and really making sure we get to a place where it's equal and fair, this is a president has taken this very seriously. And you know that by executive actions that he took very early on in his administration. And he understands what certain communities go through. He's been very clear about that. He's talked about that. As it relates to pardoning or any clemency, the president at the end of the year makes announcements. He's thinking through that process very thoroughly. There's a process in place, obviously. And so I'm not going to get ahead of the president on this, but you could expect more announcement, more pardons and clemency at the end of this term.
Yeah, maybe for the rest of the administration and the rest of the Biden crime family. So Karine having a tough time out there trying to thread the needle on this one. Obviously, the media asking some unusually tough questions because they got duped too. Many of them wrote articles, and many of them showed up on cable news stations and said, above the law, that was above the law, all the time, repeatedly. Then it turns out Joe Biden just pardons his little crackhead, allegedly, arguably human trafficking son, and it absolves him of any criminality going all the way back for almost 12 years, 11 years, all the way back to 2014. Pretty incredible. Karine struggling, the White House struggling. I think that as every day goes by, Joe Biden is doing more and more damage to the Democratic Party. It's almost unbelievable. Their brand has no cohesion at all. They look like the party that will say anything, anytime, anywhere, no matter what is real or not. And people hate those people. People can't stand those people. And that is what the entire party has become. And Karine is out there just saying, she said multiple times from the podium, never happened. Now she's got to come out and say, he changed his mind because he feels like there's a political prosecution happening. Republicans have never had a bigger opening thanks to President Trump standing firm in the wake of all of this. The double standard is on display now more than ever. And Trump, I think, has carte blanche to pardon anyone, anywhere, no matter what. And it will be better than this pardon, which left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. We knew this was happening, but Democrats are waking up, realizing they've been lied to again. All right, let's see what you say about this.